All right, everybody, welcome back to AntiWar Radio, Chaos 92.7 FM in Austin, Texas, streaming live worldwide on the internet, chaosradioaustin.org and antiwar.com/radio. Our next guest is our show's good friend, Ray McGovern, former CIA analyst and co-founder of Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. You can find much of what he writes at, I believe, Common Dreams, some at Consortium News. He's got a new one on the blog at antiwar.com called Candidates Punt on Iraq, Israel, and actually the latest version of what's mostly the same article is available right now at consortiumnews.com. Welcome back to the show, Ray.
Thank you.
It's very good to have you here, and a typically brave article that you've got here on the Anti-War blog and here at Consortium News. Ray's stray thoughts, I like that. They don't seem that stray. They're pretty much right on point. And I think what you've done here is you've proffered an explanation for why the war party is so intent on starting a war with Iran that has eluded me this whole time, because, Ray, we know that they haven't been sending EFP bombs to Sauter's guys to kill our troops with. That's all lies. And we know that they're not making atomic bombs. All American intelligence agencies agreed about that last November. And so all this hype about possible strikes on Iran and all the known easily predictable, terrible consequences that have been talked about in the media lately, the question has remained, well, what's it all for? Why? And you have an explanation, I think. It's one I hadn't heard yet. So why don't you go ahead and share your insight with the good people here?
Well, Scott, it's always been an amalgam of motivations driving the people who are running our policy toward the Middle East. Ever since World War II, there have been two main motives. One is to ensure the safe delivery or access to oil and gas, and the second, which is to secure the state of Israel within safe and, to the extent possible, internationally recognized borders. So the only real difference here with respect to George W. Bush is that he decided that these twin objectives could be pursued by starting a war with Iraq. It wasn't enough to deal with the oil, as most people do, in a commercial way. We needed to control the oil, number one. And, of course, the people who were behind the deal here, the invasion of Iraq, the so-called neoconservatives, many of them, and, I don't say this disrespectfully, Scott, many of them have great difficulty distinguishing between what they see as the strategic needs of Israel on the one hand and the strategic needs of our country on the other. Now, this is not to say they're traitors or they're trying to dip us in. It's an honest sort of thing, but it's a pernicious thing, and unrecognized, it can get us into really, really deep kimchi here, because the people, as I say, running this policy, Elliot Abrams first and foremost, the people like Cheney who see a connection here with dominance by Israel and us in the Middle East and oil, they're all sort of speaking from the same script. And, if they still have the influence they have traditionally had over the last 7 years with our president, the decider, well, then I think that the Israelis will have additional incentive now. They've always had lots of incentive. I've been saying for a while that the odds are greater than even that Israel will somehow cause a war with Iran before Bush and Cheney leave. Now they have real powerful additional incentive. Why? Well, because Iraq. Premier of Iraq has said he's going to insist on a timetable for withdrawal of all U.S. troops before he'll renew permission for us to stay past New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And this has to really have the Israelis scratching their heads and wondering, wow, this wasn't such a good idea at all, persuading the so-called neocons to start a war in Iraq, and the thought that would make this region safer for us. It certainly made it a lot less safe. And if indeed the Iraqi leaders are able to prevail here, and the United States doesn't replace Maliki, or the United States just doesn't thumb its nose at what the Iraqi leaders are saying, then Israel will be in a more labil, a really dangerous situation from their point of view, much more so than before the war in Iraq. So it's a sea change. It's a change in the political landscape. And, I'm no expert on these areas, but I'm really amazed that no one has pointed this out or no one has debunked this notion. Maybe with my piece out there in the ether, perhaps people will come and say, well, McGovern, you've not got this right. But I'm deathly afraid that I do have it right. And if I do, we're going to have hostilities with Iran before this administration leaves office.
The Israelis see that the war in Iraq was actually a very bad deal for them, and they want the American occupation in Iraq to last. Meanwhile, Nouri al-Maliki and the Dawa Party Supreme Islamic Council types apparently are playing their get the hell out of here card because they don't really need us. They are the majority after all, or represent the majority after all. And so this could be part of a ploy by the Israelis to just keep America in Iraq by hook or by crook.
Well, that's correct. This is not to say that there aren't a great many Israelis who are deathly afraid of the possibility that Iran could get a nuclear weapon. But no one, not even the Israeli generals, are predicting that Iran is anywhere near that, nor could it get one before January of next year. So the timeline driving all this, of course, is the fact that our president and vice president have only 6 months left in office. They have pretty much undertaken, as Olmert himself has said, to take care of Iran before they leave office. He said that publicly, by the way, missed in U.S. media, surprise, surprise. And so if he has made that undertaking, and if Cheney, as seems to me to be the case, is still calling the shots, that's why you have people like the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mike Mullen sort of plaintively saying, a third front. Hey, a third front is really not what we need right now. Besides everything else, we don't have enough troops for the second front in Afghanistan. And, this would really be, they could seal the straits. And, who is he talking to? Is he warning the Israelis? Give me a break. He's trying to wake up our Congress people. He's trying to wake up the people in this country to realize what a catastrophe it would be to get involved in a shooting war with Iran. And so I don't see him as shaking his finger at the Israelis. I see him as trying to build up some public momentum so that people can see what the game really is if Cheney prevails.
Pardon my naivete, but it would seem to me that if the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is saying, Mr. President, we really, really don't want to do this, that's a qualitative difference between the situation with Richard Myers before the war in Iraq, where he hung his head and said, whatever you say, sir.
Well, there is a qualitative difference between Richard Myers and Mike Mullen. I mean, that much is clear. We know Myers approved of all the torture and everything else now. Now, Mullen is doing his level best, but, Scott, we have to realize that we're talking about uniformed officers in the United States Navy, in this case, armed forces, and, they're trained to discharge orders. And, the precedent we have here is Admiral Fallon. Now, Fallon was head of CENTCOM, the command that has purview of that part of the world, and he watched how policy was being made even before he took official command. He watched the debacle in Gaza as Abrams and Cheney tried to start a civil war and displace the Hamas there. And he watched the way policy making is done, and he just said to himself, look, I'm going to speak out about this. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what a really dumb idea would be to attack Iran. If they remove me, well, I'll be just as happy, because what I really don't want, really don't want as a commanding officer of CENTCOM is to be on the receiving end of an order from someone like Cheney and or Elliott Abrams saying, okay, implement Plan A, after which half of my troops in Iraq are in severe jeopardy of losing their lives. I care too much about my troops,
So if they don't listen to me, I'm just as well out of there. And that's the way it happened. And that's why he left. I'm convinced. And so will Mullen leave? Yeah, I don't know. Would Gates interfere? Gates' reputation for standing up for principle is not very good. So,
to say the least.
What we have here is a situation which is very dangerous. To their credit, the uniformed officers, the senior ones, have been the ones responsible for preventing this so far. But, with Congress beating the drums, and what we really need, Scott, and I've said this before, I think, on your program, what we really need is the real initiation of impeachment proceedings